Welcome back to the Wellness with Delaney podcast. I am sitting down today with Phoebe Mcpherson. She is the co-founder of two amazing companies in the functional mushroom, plant, and wellness space, Fungi and Function. She is an educator on mushrooms and Kanna, and we are going to talk about all things holistic living, mushies, Kanna, and just so many ways that you can support your health using nature. And I'm really excited for this conversation. It's one I've been really looking forward to. So Phoebe, thank you so much for joining.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to chat about all things holistic and wellness, and especially with you because you do such a good job of explaining it to your own audience.
Oh, thank you. I couldn't do it without these conversations where I also just get to learn so much from other experts. It fills my cup. So I'm so excited. So let's just start. Can you tell us about your two companies?
Yeah, so two companies, one's called Fungtion and one is called Funguy. Fungtion is all about kind of like the hippie, super earthy side of functional wellness. We make tinctures that support everyday well-being, from performance and energy to your mood and nervous system. We just do tinctures. They taste really sweet like honey, but there's no sugar or added sugar whatsoever, just really amazing, potent functional mushrooms and plants. And then the second company is called Fungi, and we make mood-enhancing social lubricants in the form of chocolates and fruit juice. And these are meant to be in place of other substances or alcohol that we might turn to sometimes, but we're never here to vilify them. So our chocolates and gummies are amazing for a night out or when you really need to chill. They pair really well with alcohol and cannabis and all the things, but they're amazing to take on their own. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I think probably fewer people are going to know what Kanna is than mushrooms, which I want to get into both. So can we start with, I guess just, would you mind explaining what Kanna is to the audience?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind at all. So Kanna is a plant from South Africa, a beautiful, beautiful succulent. It grows along kind of the ground in the Karoo, a dry and arid region, kind of like a Joshua tree here in California. And it is classified as an empathogen. Empathogens are a class of psychoactive, not psychedelic, substance that opens up your heart metaphorically. It increases feelings of love and joy and empathy, and increases feelings of trust and safety in yourself, and the ability to more authentically so enhances connection. Other empathogens you might have heard of are like MDMA and MDA or sassafras, but Kanna is totally natural. And in addition to that, there's some really incredible research around the plant. It's been studied for its antidepressant effects, anxiolytics, so like anti-anxiety. It relieves stress. It actually works in your amygdala. So the more you take it, the more it rewires your amygdala, so you're less reactive to your stresses, which is really incredible. And there's some more research coming out about some of its alkaloids have PDE4 and PDE5 inhibitor effects. And what that really means in like basic terms is that it's creating senses of euphoria, supporting your sex, supporting your libido, and just helping you feel better every day. And one of the things that I love about Kanna is, unlike many other plants and like mushrooms and other things, that the more you take it, you might create a habit. It might be slightly addictive. We've been seeing this a lot within the kratom space. Kanna is non-addictive and non-habit forming. And in fact, the more you take it, the more sensitive you are to it. And people in South Africa have been using it for 30, 40, 50 years, almost daily, totally fine. And same with the indigenous, who are the wisdom keepers of this plant. They were using Kanna for as long as human beings have been around. And in fact, the indigenous groups that are responsible for the wisdom of Kanna are actually some of the oldest indigenous groups on the planet.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I've taken your Kanna gummies before a night out, and it's amazing. It's so subtle, which is what I like. It's not like I feel like I took something. I just feel this subtle shift, and I know a lot of us can start to feel a little bit of social anxiety or that dread when we actually have to follow through on the plans we made. So to have something just to open up our hearts and put us in a good space is beautiful. So what is the difference between psychedelic and psychoactive?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked, because it's, I think, one of the most misconstrued things within this space right now. So psychoactive is anything that's working on your psyche. It's working on your nervous system, your endocrine system, your brain, etc. Coffee, for example, is psychoactive. Chocolate, cacao is psychoactive. Psychedelic is a sliver of psychoactive substances. So it is something that is psychoactive, but it's also working to produce hallucinations. People call them entheogens, psychedelics. So you're like having this meeting with God, right? It's like profoundly altering your psyche to the point that you're not really able to function, right? You see like a lot of visuals. So common psychedelics are LSD, DMT, which is what's in ayahuasca, same with 5-MeO, psilocybin, which are in certain psilocybin-containing mushrooms. But what people get confused about is psychedelic is now this kind of umbrella term that people use to refer to things like ketamine and MDMA. But ketamine's not a psychedelic. It's actually a depressant and a dissociative. And MDMA is an empathogen, the same as Kanna. So psychoactive, anything that's working on your psyche, you're not entering an altered state of consciousness necessarily. And then psychedelic is a subcategory of psychoactive where you are absolutely altering your consciousness, and you're seeing hallucinations and meeting some sort of thing.
Yeah, wow. I think a lot of people hear psychoactive and assume you're going to be high, or you're going to, not be able to drive, or it's going to be, affect your mental state more deeply, like a psychedelic will, right?
Exactly.
And so I think to draw that comparison that coffee is psychoactive can hopefully help people see that there's a whole broad spectrum. Not all psychoactive substances are drugs or going to be hallucinogenics or whatever, right? There's a huge spectrum.
Exactly.
So if somebody does take Kanna, so specifically, let's say your Kanna choose, will they be high? Will they be able to drive? Like, what's the experience?
Yes, exactly. So we actually now have 2 types of Kanna chews, which I'm so excited about. But we'll start with the OG, which are our flow gummies. And so you will not be high whatsoever. We say it's mood enhancing, not mood altering. So you feel a subtle shift, which is kind of what you mentioned before. You feel more open, you feel connected, you feel happy, you don't feel anxious or stressed. A lot of times when people take our gummies or just Kanna in general for the first time, they'll come up to me and they'll be like, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but you just feel this sense of like connection with other people and this sense of like safety and opening up. We like to say that it feels like a legal microdose. So if you've ever had like a true microdose of gummies where like you have this very subtle working in the background shift, that's what Kanna is providing. But what I love about Kanna is that unlike, psychedelics, where even in like a small dose, it's very much expanding like your psyche and your brain, right? Kanna is very much about the heart. And I think that's such an important piece for everyone's healing, but especially people in the psychedelic space.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that people can take it and just kind of feel, that subtle like openness, that trust. I know even for me, especially, I live in the Pacific Northwest where the freeze is real and people are very closed off. And I try really hard to be the opposite. So just to have something that makes you just naturally feel a little bit more inclined towards opening to people, I think that's very, very beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think a piece on that I find really interesting is like not only does it open you and other people up, but it also makes you trust yourself more. So even if other people aren't opening up, you don't feel as affected by it. You're like, oh, it's okay. Just like they don't want to open up, and that's fine. And I think it's really fascinating. There's some research being done on people with like anxious attachment styles and codependency and how Kanna can actually help with that.
That's amazing. That's really, really cool. I think we're seeing more and more anxious attachment. We're seeing more and more anxiety in general. So to have something natural, I mean, I know there are lots of different schools of thought. I really always try to lean towards a natural solution for everything under the sun. So, we're seeing so many people on antidepressants, anti-anxiety, all of these different drugs that have other side effects or can interact with the supplements or other medications, and it's a slippery slope. So to have these beautiful options out there is incredible, and I can't wait for more people to find out that Kanna exists in the Western world.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited too. I remember I started talking about Kanna in 2021, and I spoke on stage at like a psychedelic conference, and no one had heard of it. And I remember with my last company, I got off stage and we had like 200 new orders, and we're like, whoa, this is like wild. And now just watching the space change and more people find out about it, and there'll be more Kanna companies, like. For me, like, yes, I'm like a founder and I have my own business, but at the end of the day, like if people are gaining more access to Kanna and more access to natural alternatives that help them feel better, then like I'm happy and my job is done. Because I think there is such a problem in Western society right now with, our addiction to like a magic pill or something that forces our body to feel something. I always say it's like something that's arresting your nervous system versus working harmoniously with your nervous system. And I think the more and more that we can have these subtle shifts so we don't feel the need to like go overboard with what we're taking, the better. Even with caffeine, even with working out, with everything, right? Everything in moderation, I guess, including moderation.
That is so beautiful. Yeah. And I'm so with you there. Like if people can find out that these solutions exist, that they can stop having to rely on substances that are synthetic, right? That are going to have counterproductive effects in their life to feel normal and just be able to utilize nature is just beautiful. And I love it. It's always amazing when your business and your income can tie in with your purpose, because then you can thrive and live off of making the world a better place. And that is just, I love that. That's what I strive for every day as well. So I love that. So could you also now explain function, the other side of what you do with the plants and the mushrooms?
Yes. Do you want me to explain function or explain like how mushrooms and plants work together?
I guess both, wherever you want to go with it. I know you have some different options for different mushrooms that might have different effects for people, but yeah, wherever you want to go with it.
Okay, perfect. So at both Function and Fungi, everything we do is formula based, and everything we do is about bringing together plants and mushrooms together. And we think that's really important. We are absolutely obsessed with mushrooms and we're absolutely obsessed with plants, but we find that there's a beautiful entourage effect when we allow them to work together just like they do in nature. So in Function, we have two main formulas. One is called the mushroom elixir and one is called the Kanna elixir. And both of these, we have two main mushrooms that are kind of like the header ingredients, and then we have all of these supportive plants underneath of them, which we find really important in formulation. So we're using things like lion's mane and cordyceps and chaga and reishi. These are kind of like the four main functional mushrooms that we're seeing across the space. And to give like a quick overview of mushrooms. So mushrooms are not plants. They're an entire kingdom under the fungi kingdom. And mushrooms are technically just a little piece that pops up out of the ground and it grows out of the mycelium. And this is what is now being referred to as like the fruiting body of the mushroom when you're looking at like your ingredients of what's in your different mushroom products. We try to use fruiting body only because we believe that that's like the most important for what you're putting into your body and when you're getting like the most nutrients and goodness and everything. So we use functional mushrooms, but lion's mane, it's going to be amazing for your brain and for your nervous system. It fights dementia. We use things like cordyceps, which is known as like the athlete's mushrooms. There's some incredible stories around athletes using high doses of cordyceps and people thinking that they're doping, but they're not. They're just taking cordyceps. Like, how amazing is that? And then things like reishi and chaga. But chaga, really fascinatingly, it's one of my favorite mushrooms, but it's not actually a mushroom. It's something called a sclerotia. And sclerotias are a massive mycelium, and it grows on the side of birch trees like a conch. And when you look in nature as to how mushrooms and plants grow, you get a little bit of awareness as to how they're going to affect your body. So chaga, for example, it grows on the side of a birch tree, and it's actually parasitic. So for the entire life of chaga, it's attacking the birch tree, and the birch tree is attacking chaga. And it grows in like this really wild, harsh environment. There's tons of wind and snow and cold temperatures. So it's building up this resiliency to be able to live through that. So then when you're consuming chaga, you're actually consuming and gaining that amazing resiliency that it's built up over its life, which is, I think, so fascinating to look at, how plants and mushrooms can play into our life and how they can work into whatever we're going through in real life. And in addition to that, that's why it's so important to be finding mushrooms and mushroom products that are grown like in the open air and not grown just like in plastic buckets inside, because they don't have that environment to build up that resiliency or whatever benefit that they're going to give you when you're ingesting them.
Wow, that is amazing, and so much that I want to unpack just from that. So first of all, the chaga is so fascinating, and that makes sense. I've heard of people, I can't even recall the exact area, but like in Nordic, very cold regions, like drinking chaga coffee and having like amazing health because of it, and just amazing resilience. And I love that. And yeah, I've personally taken cordyceps as a pre-workout many times, and I just love it so much. So like you mentioned how it's important to get the fruiting body of the mushroom and to have mushrooms that are I guess just like foraged or naturally occurring in nature versus in a lab, indoors, in a bucket.
Yeah, or like grown in open air. And
Yeah.
it's harder to find that. Like most mushrooms that are grown in California are grown indoors. They're grown, in buckets indoors. And when they grow, they don't look like how mushrooms grow in the wild. And, when we talk about, access for everyone, like that is one way to get access to everyone. But at the same time, like maybe we're not supposed to be creating so much abundance with mushrooms, maybe, we're supposed to take it, just with more consciousness. And it's something that I definitely grapple with every day. Like, I'm a business person, right? Like, I run businesses. I want to be able to provide more mushrooms to people. But it's really hard to, be able to get enough with like the amount of land that we have, right? And to be able to do it in California. So like I said, most mushrooms in California are grown indoors. But if you go to like the Pacific Northwest or even China, and people hate Chinese mushrooms, but a lot of mushrooms in China are grown far, far, far away from any pollution, which isn't really happening in California. So it's kind of just fascinating to look at all of that. But if you are going to buy mushroom products, always get organic and try to get fruiting body only. The jury's kind of out, like I said, around like fruiting body versus mycelium. I believe in fruiting body only, but those are the two main things. And organic, especially, even if you're eating mushrooms, you need organic, because mushrooms are hyper accumulators, meaning they're soaking up everything that's in the dirt or the soil or whatever their substrate is, and then you're ingesting that. So if it's not organic and there's chemicals or pesticides or anything that's in the soil, you are then ingesting that when you're eating those mushrooms, and you don't want to do that.
Wow, that is really, really important for people to know, because I think a lot of people are going to, with mushrooms becoming more popular, it's a blessing, but then there is the double-edged sword of so many companies that are highly unregulated. It's not that I'm against unregulated, but there's a lot of companies that might not do things the proper way, sprouting up with the popularity of mushrooms, and people don't really know where to start. They're probably going to go with whatever's the most accessible, and that might not always be the most beneficial. So it's really important for people to have this information. And then I know you guys do a really good job of like extracting the mushrooms into your supplements. Could you explain why that process is important and what you guys do?
Yeah, totally. So when you're working with herbal products, whether it's mushrooms or plants or anything else, the potency, quote unquote, of each individual like item or like plant or a mushroom is going to vary pretty wildly. So you want to be either extracting or working with like really, really large volumes to standardize the extract and standardize the amount. Because when you're creating a consumer product or an end product, you want to make sure that you're getting a consistent experience every single time. So in our tinctures, we do a triple extraction. Mushrooms either need a hot water extract or they need an alcohol extract. And some, you want a dual extract. When you do a hot water extract, you're getting something called beta glucans out of your mushrooms. This is like a lot of really goodness. It's going to support like brain, nervous system, immunity, etc. across the gamut. It's where you're getting a lot of those benefits, but then you're also going to get other benefits by doing an alcohol extract, especially with mushrooms that you can't really eat. So for example, chaga and reishi are really important to do alcohol extracts. So we make sure to do a dual extract, and then we actually do a triple extract by doing a fermentation process as well to get some like extra goodness out of it. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that you guys do that. I remember when I bought this book on adaptogens, and I really wanted to understand them more, because obviously I use them, I promote them, and I just, whenever I like something, I get really excited to know as much as I can possibly know about it. And so when I was learning about extractions, I messaged you guys. I was like, what do you guys do? I was so curious, and I loved your answer.
That you even like knew to ask that was so incredibly important. And I think it's really interesting because we're kind of in this space where we put a lot on the consumers to know what questions to ask. But I also think like it is our responsibility as a brand to unbiasedly educate consumers as well, so that they understand what they're getting. So it's kind of like, again, this double-edged sword. We're trying to figure out how to do it, but just knowing that you're educating and you know what to ask it's so beautiful. And then the other piece that I'll add about mushrooms. So we talked about, extracting and working with massive doses. So with all of our edibles, so like our chocolates and our gummies, we do like an 8-to-1 extract or a 16-to-1 extract. And that's important because typically in like adaptogenic, like candy, gummies, whatever, you're not actually getting enough of the mushroom or plant for there to be an effect. It's something that we call like fairy dusting. So I won't name brands, but there's a lot of really big like adaptogenic brands, and they sell like $15 packets of powder. But when you actually look at the ingredients, there's not enough of each ingredient in there for you to really feel an effect. So in our chill gummies, which are super calming, super sedating, we have a 16-to-1 reishi extract, which means that with 100 milligrams of reishi, you're getting 1,600 milligrams as like your actual dose, meaning that you're actually getting enough to really, really feel it, which is so vitally important.
That is beautiful. I love that you guys are so conscious of that as well. So I guess I would love to chat about like individual adaptogenic mushrooms so people can ultimately kind of make the best decisions for where they want to start in their own journeys or anything they want to add. So let's start with lion's mane. Can you tell me a bit about lion's mane mushroom?
Yeah, for sure. So lion's mane is beautiful. It's this beautiful mushroom that grows, in the forest. It looks like a lion's mane, hence the name, and it has like these really long, like shaggy hairs or teeth, whatever you want to call it. And it was actually used by monks thousands of years ago to increase concentration while they were meditating for days on end, which is so fantastic. It has a ton of research behind it now to support just kind of like age-related decline in your brain. It's actually working to create new neural pathways in your brain. So the more you take it, the more that you're we say it's like softening of your brain, taking it to a younger age so you can actually learn more, pick up more skills. In addition to that, it's giving you a short-term boost in cognition and focus and problem solving, et cetera, et cetera. And for lion's mane, I say take like bigger doses, like 2 to 3 grams, and you're really going to feel an effect. I know there's a lot of people that talk about, I want to quit Adderall. I always think that a combination of a little bit of caffeine with like 2 grams of lion's mane and bacopa, this incredible plant that's like nature's Xanax, together is absolutely fantastic. So that's lion's mane.
Amazing. Yeah, I love lion's mane so much. I actually give it to my dog too because I read that it can help with their brains not getting bored with depression and everything. So sometimes I'll cook her a little bit without oil, and just give it to her. She gets everything I get. She's so spoiled.
Yeah, and you also mentioned another thing. So the research done on lion's mane for depression is astounding. Like, it's so fascinating. And in the psychedelic space, there's actually some really interesting research done around combining lion's mane and a microdose, so like 100 milligrams of psilocybin for depression, even treatment-resistant depression. So that's been really fascinating to see as well.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible for mental health. And so many people don't even realize that there might be something out there that they can take that will physically help their brain cope with depression and kind of rewire their brain. And so many people just automatically are shuttled through this process of going straight to the antidepressants before they even have the opportunity to try something like this. So I love that it's becoming more popular and more mainstream because ultimately that can only help people in the long run. So that's so beautiful. Can you tell me about reishi mushroom, please?
Yeah, I love reishi. It's so incredible. So it's known as like the mushroom of immortality. So in one of the original Materia Medicas, it's like it's a text to understand like the benefits of plants and mushrooms. One of the original ones out of ancient China rated reishi as like number 1 and like the best out of every plant and mushroom. It was rated even above Chinese ginseng, which is like obviously incredibly profound, has so much history of usage for supporting you. But reishi is called the mushroom of immortality because it is doing so much in your system. One of the main things that it's used for is managing your mood, depression, anxiety, stress, and really calming your nervous system. But in addition to that, it's not just like calming you and helping you chill out, but it's actually supporting your nervous system. It's supporting adrenal fatigue. It's supporting your cortisol levels. It's also amazing for skin. It's amazing for digestion, and anything that's amazing for immunity is going to be amazing for digestion as well. And it's one of those things that we're seeing more and more kind of like across the gamut in products. And it's something that the more you take it, the more you feel it. It's amazing for your nervous system. But the first time you take it, you can still really feel it, which I think is fantastic, because sometimes when we have plants and mushrooms that you need consistent use out of, the Western world doesn't really like quote unquote believe because they don't think it's working. So to have a mushroom that's working so quickly and so effectively in the nervous system is absolutely amazing.
That's amazing. It covers a wide range. So there's a nervous system. So I'm imagining people who might even have, I know a lot of people who have like nervous system issues that cause pain, like psychosomatic pain, or even skin issues, like digestion, skin issues, acne. It sounds like reishi can really cover a very, very wide range. Is that correct?
Yeah, it can definitely cover a super wide range. And in addition to that, reishi also has like sedative effects. So it's helping like really, really calm you down. It's working as a nervine tonic. So something that's working on your nervous system, but tonifying it, so supporting it over time. And it's going to improve your sleep patterns over time as well.
Amazing. Yeah. Reishi does it all. I've heard people call Reishi the queen all the time. I totally agree.
Queen.
And then can you tell
Oh my
me
God.
the queen?
The
I
queen.
love
I
her.
love.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, and then one of the
Every-
things that I'll say with reishi that I find really interesting is that it's actually protecting like your DNA and your brain cells, which is why you find it in like a lot of like nootropic or brain boosting products as well. It's really good for like anti-aging. Yeah, I love reishi. It's so incredible, and because it's like supporting your brain over time, it's also fighting against like Alzheimer's and dementia, etc., which again, lion's mane does the same thing. And you'll find that a lot of functional mushrooms have like very similar like baseline benefits that they're doing, and then kind of specific things that you can use them for as well.
I love that. And then, yeah, synergistically, I'd imagine if you're taking lion's mane plus reishi, the benefits for your brain would just be like out of this world, incredible. So that's incredible. I love that you can take them. And you guys have supplements where that you combine multiple mushrooms, right? And then it has like even more profound effects.
Yes, exactly. So it's our mushroom elixir on function and then the perform elixir on fungi. We combine lion's mane and cordyceps together. So cordyceps, and we can go right into it. It's energizing you down to a cellular level. So it's helping cells more efficiently turn like sugar into energy in your cells. It's increasing your max VO2, so it's increasing your lungs capacity for breathing, which is why it's so amazing for athletes. And anything that's going to improve cells' ability to function is going to improve brain function as well, which is why we're combining it with lion's mane, because we want to make sure that we're not just, making your brain work harder, but we're also giving your body more oxygen, more sugar, more ability to really function at this higher level, which is super important. So yeah, cordyceps is super cool. Everyone knows cordyceps because of that show, like The Last of Us or something like that, where cordyceps like takes over the world and like kills a bunch of people, and that's not possible. Well, who knows? Anything's possible. But cordyceps is parasitic. So the way that it grows is that it takes over the nervous system of caterpillars, turns them into a zombie, and then like sprouts out of it. We do not use that type of cordyceps. This is one of the mushrooms that we don't grow in open air because it needs to grow on living things. We use a culture of the mycelium of cordyceps, and then we grow it like in a vat. And so it's called Cordyceps militaris versus sinensis. So sinensis is the one that's growing in the wild, and then militaris is the one that's growing like in a lab and inside. But fascinatingly, cordyceps is one of the most like expensive medicines or like herbal medicines on the planet by weight, just because of like how it's grown in the wild. So make sure to get the militaris to just support, the industry as a whole.
That is so crazy. I don't even think I've seen The Last of Us. So I'm like, whoa, that's so crazy to learn that. And then finally, would you mind telling me about turkey tail, please?
Oh yeah, for sure. So turkey tail is famous for its immune boosting properties and its anti-cancer properties. Like really, really famous for anti-cancer. Paul Stamets, who's like a celebrity in the mushroom space and who's kind of like been like the face of like the modern mushroom movement, famously gave his mom massive doses of turkey tail and cured her cancer. So many people have been using massive doses of turkey tail for a very, very long time to support cancer and even be like an adjunct to chemotherapy to kind of fight off some of the side effects as well. It's also amazing for your immune system. Like it's really, really amazing for boosting your immune system. And helping either up or down regulate your digestive system and your immune system, depending on what your body needs, which is important because some plants and mushrooms are either going to be up regulators or down regulators. And your immune system either needs to kind of like ramp up or ramp down depending on what your body's going through. But if you're someone that has like an immune issue and your body's like always like hyper immune responsive or like not that responsive and you're taking something that's making that even worse, it can actually be pretty bad for you. So having something that's immunomodulatory, so it's either up or down regulating your immune system, is super, super important.
Wow, I'm really curious now. I was actually sharing this on another episode with an herbalist where I've been having really bad histamine reactions lately, where if I'm somewhere with heavy allergens or traveling, my eyes start like burning and watering, and it's not an external thing, like nothing external works. I can tell it's something inside my body. So, and it's been going on for maybe a year and a half now, pretty badly. I'm really curious if I were like serious about turkey tail, if that could help with, I can tell my immune system is misfiring. I'm like, I don't know if it's an autoimmunity thing or what. I'm just really getting to the bottom of it, taking all the different herbs and minerals and raw beef organs. But I'm like, I wonder what turkey tail could do for that, because that could be really, really profound. So maybe I'll share that journey.
Yeah, you absolutely should. And it would be really interesting for you to also see if you have some sort of like immune issue, whether it's like hypothyroid or hyperthyroid or any of the other things, because that would actually indicate whether you need like an immune suppressant, an immune booster, or something that's immunomodulatory. And something fascinating with turkey tail is it's also like really, really helping your gut. Which is absolutely so important for anyone that's having something going on, especially like us girlies, right? What do they say? Like all hot girls have like IBS, or all hot girls have like gut issues. Turkey tail is also anti-inflammatory, which we also see in chaga. Chaga is hugely, hugely anti-inflammatory. It's also supporting melanin, so like skin health, which is great. I could go on and on, but so many amazing things about mushrooms. But two other mushrooms I would love to just quickly touch on are maitake and shiitake. So they are both gourmet mushrooms, which means you can eat them, similarly to like lion's mane, but they have profound effects for your gut. I think they're so amazing for gut health, and they've actually been used as an adjunct to chemotherapy in Japan for people with stomach and gut cancer, and they work together synergistically. So you typically see them together, and they're absolutely fantastic, and you can eat them. So like be adding shiitake and maitake to all of your food. They're so great. Maitake, fascinatingly, in feudal Japan, was so sought after that people would trade it for gold. And Japanese like peasants would go out hunting for maitake, and when they found a cultivation spot, they would keep it hidden from even their family members until after their death, and would oftentimes write the location of the cultivation spot in their will, which is so cool.
That is so cool. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, because especially with shiitake, you can just buy it on the shelf at your grocery stores. People probably think of it more as like the cremini, baby bella, like white mushrooms, where they're just like, it's just something you're eating. They don't even realize it's necessarily so beneficial for you. And it's widely accessible, which I love, but it is, so profound and has such amazing benefits, I think, beyond what people even understand. Is it, do you guys have any supplements that feature shiitake or maitake, or is that like something that you guys talk about?
Yeah, not at the moment. I would love to do something with shiitake and maitake. One of the reasons I haven't turned to putting it into a product yet is that it's stimulating your immune system rather than being immunomodulatory. And stimulating your immune system, again, like we talked about, is incredible. But for people with like immune issues, it can sometimes be too much. So I haven't decided like how I want to incorporate them. But I personally do not have an immune issue, but I eat it all the time because I think they're so amazing. And they also work synergistically with reishi as well. So shiitake, maitake, reishi. If you're someone that's a little under the weather, just add those in and you'll be good to go.
Gorgeous. Yeah. And I love that you guys are so thoughtful about that, because so many people are just going to be buying the supplement and not necessarily understanding the underlying root causes of anything they're feeling. I love that you guys do try to make that something that's a little bit more easy and accessible for everyone versus, somebody coming in and knowing exactly what's going on with their immune system and their autoimmunity and any inflammation responses they're having might have a better, easier time picking a supplement. Most people do not have that level of understanding. I hope someday that we can change that, but it takes conversations like this for people to get curious and start to care about what's going on at a root cause level so they can really treat it, not just take whatever supplement like an influencer tells them to. So I love that you are very thoughtful and conscious.
Thank you so much. And you actually touch on something that I think about like literally every single day. So I'm an herbalist. So I've helped people one-on-one with like understanding, what like plants and mushrooms they can be incorporating into their diet. Like I help people with microdosing and incorporating functional plants and mushrooms into their microdose to better guide like their journey and support their system. And then, I'm also a business owner and a co-founder where I'm being tasked to formulate products for the masses. And as you've kind of heard through this conversation, every single mushroom and plant is going to affect people differently because everyone's body is different. And what's going on in your body is different. What you're experiencing on a day-to-day is going to be different. And so it's really, really hard to formulate for the masses because there's not going to be a magic pill. There's no one size fits all. And even with the plants and the mushrooms that we use, they're going to affect so many people differently. Like, for example, we don't use this, but ashwagandha is very famous. I'm sure you've used it before. It's amazing for supporting your nervous system and calming you down. People are like, oh my gosh, this is great. I can think when I feel more chill. But for some of the population, it actually stimulates them more and they're like really, really hyper and they don't feel calm at all, which is fascinating. So you'll have people that are taking like a chill product and they feel like super energized. Valerian as well is really fascinating. It's incredible for sleep. We have it in our mellow elixir or the Kanna elixir on Function. But for some people, valerian's actually stimulating and you get like really hyper and excited from it. It doesn't help you sleep. So it's something I think about a lot. Like, just know for all the listeners out there, there's so many products on the market because everyone's body is different. And just because a product doesn't work for you doesn't necessarily mean that it's bogus or it's a bad product. It just might not be for you. In the same way where you walk into Sephora and there's 42 different moisturizers. It's because there's a moisturizer for everyone. And like you get to try one week and another the other week until you find the one that's perfect for you. And at the end of the day, like, this information is out here because if you want to create your own product for yourself or just go buy all the supplements and just support yourself, you can do that too. You don't have to buy an end product. So yeah, that's my little rant on like wellness and products and mushrooms.
No, I love it. And I love that you do the one-on-one side so people really can get like a honed in approach to their bodies. And then kind of shifting gears a little bit, because this is something I did learn from you a while back when we first got in contact. Can you explain mushroom cycling and why that might matter for someone who does take mushroom supplements?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So in nature, everything is like in seasons and in cycles, right? There's nothing that's constant. We have 4 seasons, things live and they die, the sun goes up and down, etc. And we see the same thing in how we're using mushrooms specifically and the other plants as well. And so this is called cycling. So this keeps the products kind of like active in your body so you don't build a tolerance, which is really easy to do like with some mushrooms and plants. And so we recommend cycling mushrooms. So with our tinctures, we say 5 days on, 2 days off is really lovely because it's honoring the cycles of nature, but also honoring kind of like the Western cycle of living, which is the weekdays and then the weekends, really easy for you to remember. And if you have a microdosing practice, it's amazing to cycle your microdosing with your functional mushrooms. So 5 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 2 days off, whatever it is, you can cycle it either doing the microdose and the functional mushrooms at the same time or doing one and then the other. And like I said, this just keeps it really active in your body. But again, it's super safe to take every day if you would like. But if you find, I don't know if I'm like really feeling it like I used to, you can take a few days off and then put it back on. You don't have to worry. You're not going to suddenly get sick or not be able to think. It's still working in your system. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, it's great for preventing that, that kind of habit forming tolerance that we can build up. And then even I feel like it makes me appreciate the mushrooms when I'm taking them, because when I get like when I'm more sensitized to the effects of the mushroom in the moment, I feel it more. I'm appreciating it more and benefiting more. And I know, Case, you have mentioned microdosing a lot, and I would love to touch on that because I mean it's not something I've personally ever done. But I am very much love hearing what everyone's doing for wellness, everyone's different schools of thoughts, and it's something we're very open to. Like, I just love learning from what people are doing. So can you share a little bit about microdosing, what you recommend with people, like how it has changed your life?
Yeah, big question. So microdosing is a tool. It's a tool to help you reconnect with yourself, resensitize your body, right? So you can actually like start to feel stuff more. Something that we are desperately struggling with in the Western world, I believe, is this desensitization, right? Like we just take more and more caffeine. We work out till we don't have to think anymore. We fill up our schedule so we don't have to rest. We're like totally desensitized. And microdosing is something that can help us resensitize, start actually feeling our emotions, finding stillness enough for like emotions and feelings to come to the surface and then out so we can actually deal with them and grapple with them. Microdosing is amazing because it can support everything from like your nervous system to expanding your mind and consciousness. It can help you with healing. It can help you with finding stillness in your body, which I find to be kind of like the very first steps of like healing, right? If we're not connected to our body, we don't feel safe enough in our body to really feel. How can we know what's actually going on? Which is something that I also find really fascinating in kind of like the modern medical space. So like the medicalization of psychedelics is we're trying to tell people what they need to feel. We're trying to tell people you need to take this to feel this, instead of allowing people to understand what they need to feel themselves, right? Or we're doing this kind of like, we're going to suppress your symptoms instead of actually working on them at the root core. So microdosing can help with all of that. There's like a whole list of things that it can help with, like energy, like I said, your consciousness, whoopsie, feeling better.
There she goes.
She's agreeing. She's like, oh my God, yes. How can I microdose?
She's like, yes. She's a mushroom gal. Kemper, it's okay, baby. Calm.
Sorry, Kemper.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't care. Side note, my friend is a scientist, like in the psychedelic space, and we both want to do some sort of study on dogs and microdosing with dogs, making dog microdoses. We think it'd be so much fun.
That would be really interesting. I'd be curious to see.
Right? I think it'd be so fascinating. But if you're someone that's interested in microdosing, go to a trusted source, right? Go to a trusted source. Make sure you know like where the mushrooms are coming from. And if you're looking for like a strain, Golden Teacher is a great place to start. Albino, Penis Envy, those are all really great. There's so many strains now. So talk to the person that you're getting your mushrooms from if those aren't available, and then start really low. So the kind of phrase that we use is start low and go slow. I typically recommend 100 milligrams of weight of the mushroom or less. That's going to be a really, really great place to start. I very much believe that a microdose should be something that's sub-perceptual and sub-hallucinogenic, meaning that you're not seeing visuals, you're not like shifting your consciousness, you're not like, whoa, I really feel it. You might just be like, oh, the colors are brighter. I'm not really angry in this meeting that I'm really frustrated about. I just feel calmer. And you can start with that. I love 5 days on, 2 days off. 3 days on, 2 days off is also great. Or 1 day on, 2 days off is another one. But a 1 day on, 2 day off is going to take you kind of back to a baseline. And so you have to really determine what you want for your microdosing protocol. And then in addition to that, typically we say when you start microdosing, do it for like 2 to 3 months and then you take a break. Microdosing is not meant to be something that you rely on. It's not a crutch. It's not something that you want to create a habit out of for a long period of time. It's meant to support you through like a certain chapter of life. And then you take a step back and then you can turn to it again when you find that you need more support. I absolutely love microdosing for times when I've really, really been struggling. When I had my like spiritual awakening or whatever you want to call it, my like, consciousness expansion, I was really turning to mushrooms and psychedelic mushrooms to better understand myself. And start really like grappling with like my own traumas that I needed to work through. But also know that microdosing is not for everyone and it might not be for you all of the time. So if you take a microdose and you find that suddenly, you're much more sensitive to your detriment, you're crying more, you're feeling more anxious, you might not be needing a microdose at that time, which is where something like Kanna comes in. So I went through a time period where I had severe PTSD after an ayahuasca trip. And it was really, really beautiful. I'm so grateful to like ayahuasca and to the experience. But I was completely debilitated. I was having PTSD episodes multiple times a week. They were lasting like 8 hours. They were awful. And I started microdosing with mushrooms and it wasn't helping. It was actually making me more sensitive and was like triggering me. And so I turned to Kanna and started microdosing Kanna instead. And that actually helped me kind of gather myself and like find a sense of grounding and calm to be able to work through it. And then eventually I was able to like microdose again, and I still microdose to this day. And I love combining Kanna with a microdose of mushrooms, and it's so beautiful because it's creating this like mind-heart connection. And so for everyone out there listening, this might sound like microdosing is like everything and it's a magic pill. And yes, and also, it's hyper personalized. So if you're interested, try it. Know that if you don't feel something, it doesn't mean it's not working. It's supposed to be very, very subtle and create subtle shifts over time that are going to be much more profound than anything else. And the final thing I'll say on microdosing is there's a really interesting study that was done on psilocybin on mice. And I'm more of a pacifist. I don't love animal studies, but I know they're important. But anyways, they were a bunch of mice and they traumatized all of the mice. They all had PTSD. And then they had 3 groups. They had the control group, so the mice that had nothing to help them heal. And then they had a group of mice that were given a massive dose of psilocybin. And then they had another group of mice that were given a microdose of mushrooms. And they were given a microdose over, I think it was 2 weeks, but I'm not sure the time period. But the mice that were given a microdose recovered from their PTSD faster, more effectively, and were untraumatized much more quickly than the massive dose of mushroom mice, which is just goes to show like subtle shifts can have such a profound effect. And again, like in the psychedelic space, we see a lot of people talking about, oh, like I had a massive ayahuasca trip, like I drink like 15 cups, or I'm doing like 12 grams today. And we don't always need that. Like that is the problem with our society. We need to find comfort in like the subtlety and the patience. Like nature never hurries, and neither should we. And the more that we can find that, the more that I think we can have lasting change and impact in our healing.
Yeah, and I think so many people look at mushrooms and like microdosing and think that you're taking mushrooms the way someone might do it at a party or like a rave. You know, it's they don't realize that people who microdose are just taking a very small amount. And what I love about these conversations is like I said, this is not something that I personally have partaken in. However, I am always interested in the studies and the experiences of people and learning, because I think no matter what, when you can approach topics that might be a little more taboo with curiosity, all you're going to do is learn and see all sides of things. And I think there is a time and a place, especially I've been learning more about how psilocybin mushrooms are being used in like PTSD treatment for soldiers. And I think we all know people who have had PTSD and have either struggled with an addiction, or lost their marriage, taken their own life, just really, really sad things that we can prevent. And learning the medicinal effects of something in nature that could potentially really help people is so, so fascinating to me.
I could not agree more. So I used to be married, and I was actually microdosing while I was going through my divorce. And it was amazing because I have definitely struggled with like feelings of codependency and feelings of like guilt of like, oh, someone else is hurting because of something I'm doing, even if it's like actually still hurting me. And microdosing actually really helped me find grounding and being like, no, like this is actually what I want. And like, I need to show up for myself for a change. So it was like super profound for that. And then, yeah, like it's so fascinating. The more that science catches up to ancient wisdom, like it makes me so happy and excited because I study like the ancient history of plants and mushrooms, right? I study like the indigenous use, like hence all of the stories that I tell about mushrooms. And it's like history tells us everything that we need to know, right? And the more and more that we can understand that the truth is somewhere in between like the ancient history, the Eastern wisdom, and like the Western and the science, the more I think we're going to like find harmony in like the psychedelic space, the mushroom space, the holistic healing space. And then really quickly, I did just want to say, so you like, I've never tried microdosing. I don't know, like if I want to, if it feels right. Like this is where Kanna and what we're doing at Fungi comes in so beautifully, because it feels like a microdose, but it's totally legal. So you don't need to have any fear around taking it. You're not entering an altered state of consciousness. Like you can't take too much and suddenly you're tripping. You just feel better. You feel more in your body. And that's why we launched a second formula called Chill. So people have an option. Like, do you want a microdose that feels like, okay, I'm like giddy and I can go out and I can go for a run and like connect with people? Or do I want a microdose that helps me like really calm my nervous system and feel chill and mellow?
I love that. And yeah, I think even for me, that makes it so approachable. Having something that I can benefit from and feel in my body and feel in my heart, and then, but just, yeah, feel comfortable. And it's so approachable to everyone. And I'm so curious because I took your Kanna gummies or your chews in the summer. And I'm like, I'm so curious how they would affect the winter, because I know here the seasonal affect disorder is so real. I'm like, okay, I want to see how it is over the holidays taking them, because it's going to be different. I took them in the summer before going out to concerts and being outside in the sun. And I think actually in the winter, that's when people, especially up here, probably really need some help. So that would be something I'd be really curious to explore. And I love what you're doing with Kanna. It's something I had never even heard about until you guys started sharing. And so I'm so fascinated by it. And I hope people can learn about it, because I'm like, if I didn't know about it, and I'm a health coach and I do all these things, I'm sure most people in the mainstream haven't discovered it yet. And I'm so excited for them to discover it, which leads into my next question.
Yeah.
What would you say, like, or I guess in the ideal world, what is the future of mushrooms and Kanna in wellness, in medicine? Just what would you say?
Oh my gosh, that's such a big question. I think about it all the time. It's hard to say what the future is, because I think we're going through such a massive shift in the United States. Like, we're going through such a massive like political shift, which is like really fascinating to watch. And I'm not commenting on either side, but just like, who's in power over like different government branches, and even like over the FDA, is going to create a massive shift in like the wellness, holistic plant mushroom space. We're seeing a massive shift in states' approach to psychedelics. We're seeing a massive shift in the way that the medical model is approaching psychedelics. And I can't say which way it's going to go, but I can say that I really hope we get to a point where there is better access to psychedelics, and specifically mushrooms, that feel safe and approachable. And I really hope that as time continues, consumers in the functional space, so like what fungi and function are doing, have a better understanding and better access to education, so that they actually understand what they're putting in their body, and they're able to discern which products are going to be supportive for themselves. Because I think there is a massive, massive gap in understanding of like what is a proper dosage to really support yourself, and what consumers are putting out there. And in addition to that, I would love to see Kanna, continue to skyrocket, and I would love to see more people trust functional mushrooms and plants. I think we're kind of in this interesting space. Delaney, you and I were both in this bubble of like, we love holistic wellness, we believe it, but most of the country doesn't. Like, I go to events in the Midwest and I try to give people our products, and they're like, oh no, I can't. Like, I'm driving later, or like I get drug tested. And like that fear, even though everything's totally legal, is a massive, massive like hoop and jump that we need to move through as a country, because otherwise we're just going to continue this like divide and separation of like accepting of like psychedelics and functional mushrooms and plants, and people who actually need it. The people who are scared of it are probably the ones that need it the most.
Absolutely. I think it's so crazy that people are more comfortable taking prescribed narcotics than they are taking functional mushrooms in some cases. And so I'm just hoping, and it's not even on the people, it's on, the education systems, on the pharmaceutical systems that have really taught us that these mood altering, brain altering synthetic drugs that have, I know personally people who've had tragic results from them, just from getting a surgery, right? And then developing an addiction. And it's tragic that these are okay, yet these mushrooms that don't even alter our state of mind are dangerous. So I would love to see a shift. And yeah, I'm very curious to see what happens.
Yeah, and I think to that point too, like there's something really fascinating in like the medicalization and the bastardization of mushrooms and plants, where like, we're seeing an acceptance of mushrooms and plants, but it's like, oh, okay, we're just going to pull a single alkaloid out of these plants. We're not going to use the whole plant, and just sell you the like chemically controlled substance. And I think like that's a place, and we're even seeing it within the psychedelic space. It's like, okay, you're just going to have the pure psilocybin here, have mushrooms without like any of the side effects of like tripping. And it's like, but the point is that you're tripping. Like, that's what you're supposed to be doing. Like, the reason plants have all these other alkaloids in it is like for a reason. It's supporting your body in a certain way. And it's like, the more we try to control nature, I think the more it's going to fight back. So yeah, it's really fascinating to see what's happening. We're definitely in this kind of like crossroads of like medicalization and like natural, and yeah, it's an interesting time.
It is. We are on the precipice of something, and I think the next few years will only reveal like more. I'm curious to see how education and information shifts in the next few years. It'll be very fascinating to watch.
Yeah. What do you want to see?
One thing I'd love. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What do I want to see? Oh gosh. I think a big thing would be one thing that really bothers me is the suppression of information that can really benefit people. So for instance, let's talk about cancer treatment. A lot of people who have been able to treat or cure cancer, and I know I'm not supposed to say cure or heal and all these things, but I don't really care. I'm like, this is my podcast. I'll say what I want. But they get in trouble. I know people who have been suppressed and censored for doing amazing things with substances that you can't patent. And I think for me, it's so frustrating because it only harms people when they don't have access to all the information that could benefit them, especially when they're dealing with, life-changing diseases that cause mortality. And I think that I would love to see an openness regarding plants and mushrooms and just naturally occurring things in general that can actually have profound effects. It hurts me a lot to see people jumping towards these drugs that fight and attack your body that can also be weakening your body and just making it so much harder to heal before they'll try natural things. And obviously, I don't think that one thing should be outlawed or that, certain drugs shouldn't exist. I just think that people should have the choice. And I think in order to have the choice, you need to have the informed consent on both sides. So I would just love to see less suppression of natural resources and natural information on these natural resources, because so much of it does come down to the inability to patent something that is from nature. And I think that's so corrupt.
Exactly. And that's where it's like we're at this crossroads, right? Of nature and science. And I don't want to say nature and science because then it sounds like I'm anti-science, and I'm absolutely not anti-science at all, but just this understanding, right? Of indigenous wisdom and stuff where the science hasn't caught up. Another really good example of that is Kanna was used by the indigenous in South Africa for women who were pregnant, and it was given to them to bring about a more peaceful birth. So it was given to pregnant women, it was given to toddlers, all of the thing. And if you look up Kanna now, it says not safe for women who are pregnant or nursing, which is not the case. It's been used for thousands of years by women who are pregnant, and it's and I don't even know if it's this suppression, but it's this over safety, right? It's a helicopter mom in terms of the science and medical space. And I think sometimes that can be harmful. So yeah, I totally hear you on what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. There can be so much fear when it comes to things that are natural because it's less controlled, right? It's more wild. But that's where, I love to see studies coming out on these natural things. I think ancient wisdom, thousands of years of use is the best study that you could ever have, because a lot of the studies that we're seeing even coming out are on drugs and treatments that have only been around for a few years. So we're still going to find out the benefits or the harmful contraindications in the next decade. So I think that having thousands of years of ancient wisdom is not something that we should disqualify as valuable information that we can learn from. So totally tracking with you there. Yeah. So one thing I would love to ask you that I ask everyone, because I love to kind of help humanize the experts. I think that it's really good for people to hear what people who might have more wisdom in different areas or more expertise are working on their own life. So what are some of your wellness goals?
Oh, that's a great question. Drink more water. I don't drink enough water at all. So it's definitely a big wellness goal. And then have more time moving. So not going super hard and doing an intense workout or cardio, but just getting out and walking, being in nature. I'm someone that loves to be in nature, but since moving back to LA in 2022, I've really felt this deep separation. And I think that's a huge wellness goal for me. And then what other wellness goals? I don't know. I think the last one, and this isn't a goal, but more of a recent thing that I've done that I've loved, is incorporating more dandelion root into my body. So I'm someone that used to wake up bloated. I would eat, and after every meal, I was so to a harmful degree bloated, and it was so painful. And I'm always experimenting with plants to see what works. And I started taking dandelion root, and it's been insanely beneficial for me. I don't bloat at all anymore. I actually am regular, and it's such a gift. So definitely that, just putting my wellness at the forefront. And then finally, and we could all do this, but just eat a larger variety of vegetables. I love veggies across the board, but I kind of tend to go to the same. And it's on an average week, we're supposed to eat 30 different types of vegetables. And I think the average American eats 3. So just really trying to eat the rainbow as much as possible.
I love that. Those are all amazing goals. And yeah, I love the dandelion root because I mean, I know that that's like something I probably should take too for detoxification and in general. And the biodiversity of our diet, like that's so important. It can be so easy to get in a rut, especially when you're in the wellness world. It can be easy to find something that works and just constantly eat that. So it's really awesome to be able to explore biodiversity. So could you share with the audience where people can find you, where they can find Fungtion and Funguy before we wrap up today?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find Fungtion, www.letsfunction.com, and at Let's Function on Instagram. Fungi is funguy.com, Funguy, and then at Fungi on Instagram. And you can find me on Instagram. It's at _Phoebe_Mcpherson. And I'm sure we'll put a link in the show notes. And then
Yes.
as an offer, you guys can use my name, Phoebe or Delaney, and you guys will get a discount on both websites. So that's an offer if you guys feel intrigued by any of the products we talked about.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I will make sure to put all the links in the show notes if you guys are curious, which I'm sure you are after listening to this episode. And so then you can shop all the different kanna, the mushrooms, the plants, and everything. And it's just going to be so wonderful. I'm excited to hear what you guys think. If you learned something from this episode today, please make sure to screenshot it, add it to your story, tag Phoebe, tag Fungi, tag Functional, and just help us get the word out there about these amazing natural remedies and solutions for people in all different walks of life. Phoebe, thank you so much for joining me today. I loved chatting with you.
Thanks. I loved it too. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks, you too. All right, you guys, thanks so much and have a wonderful day.